Hello and welcome to another episode of the Brand Retro Podcast. I am the host, Mike Brevik, and today on the podcast we have Chris Bolton from Murmur Creative. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I was excited about this because I know you have a similar background to my own on the creative side, the web development side, those kinds of things. So give us a little bit of information about, kind of who you are, what you do, and how you're involved with Murmur.
Absolutely. So my brother started Murmur Creative back in like 2007, 2008. He started freelancing and I was working in digital marketing for
Okay.
a music distribution company called CD Baby. And I was getting into SEO and entrepreneurial stuff was just exciting to me. So I was sort of helping him and coaching him and sort of like along for the ride for a number of years before the business sort of got to a point where I could jump from my current job over to Murmur Creative. And I ended up doing a bunch of stuff in the beginning that didn't totally work out. I was like, let's turn it, let's add a bunch of marketing services to this branding company. And it that wasn't totally successful. So then I was like, okay, we need to like actually improve, what we're actually offering and do branding. And so I started a brand strategy department to sort of augment all the design work we were doing. And I worked a lot in the web department. And now I'm actually running the web department at Murmur because the brand strategist that I hired was better than me. So I was like, you do this.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because, like, similar to what you were describing there, it's hard to know where to stop with marketing because it all connects, right? And I think we can all agree that, like, you can't be all things to all people and you can't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Like, you can't necessarily be everything, but it's also intertwined. It's hard to know where to stop. So, from an agency perspective, what are your thoughts on that and kind of how did kind of deal with that yourself?
Yeah, well, since I was on a digital marketing team, I sort of knew how everything worked. I knew how social
Right.
media worked. I knew how PPC worked. I knew how SEO worked. I knew how email marketing and blogging worked. So I was like, let's do it all,
Right.
But like, not everybody else at Murmur knew how to do that stuff. And so I immediately like couldn't provide everything, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, like we either need to hire a bunch of people to do all this stuff. But I was immediately in over my head. Like I said yes to way too much. And that was when we sort of had to like reverse course and be like, okay, like what are we good at? What can we do? And we sort of drew a line like, yes, we can design anything. We're like, if you want us to design a campaign, if you need social media images, but like we don't have like the capacity to be like posting all your social media for you and
Yeah.
reporting on the analytics and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of where we ended up drawing the line is like and we dabbled a couple of different times in sort of revisiting like where is that line in
Yeah.
marketing, because a lot of people ask us, they're like, hey, like we need a lot of marketing help and we love you guys. Like, what can you do? And then we have to think about it again and be like, okay, this is what we can do and this is what we can't do.
Yeah.
But drawing a line is important because otherwise you're just constantly, even if you know how to do something, knowing how to sell it, knowing how to deliver that value and make clients happy is another skill.
It's not that we steer away from accountability too, but you just don't, like you said, you just don't want to bite off more than you can chew because it's more than most people realize, specifically clients. Because, like, I think sometimes the idea of marketing is just relegated to this bucket where it's like, well, I thought you guys did marketing. And it's like, we do, but we don't do every, you know, method and platform and little bell and whistle and tip and trick. Like, there's a lot to it. And that's why there's a lot of specificity with agencies. And I'm with you where we can know a little bit about something and dabble and maybe connect some dots for you, but we have to be very careful on what we own and what we don't own because it can be quicksand if you go too far.
Absolutely. And when we do like offer something new, there's a lot of research and thought and
Yeah.
meetings and like preparation that goes into like, we're offering something new, like, because in the beginning it was just like someone would ask for something and would be like, yes.
Yeah. How do you fill those gaps then? Do do you have a bunch of agency partners or referrals or?
We do have partners that we refer work to. We've also found that as our messaging has gotten more specific, we've
Mhm.
had less people coming to us sort of asking for those other things. They get it. So that's kind of helpful. And then yeah, I think that, we're pretty at this point, we've been around a long time. We know people, have freelancer connections and stuff like that. So we can refer people to other small agencies and stuff like that that we feel like are good fits. And some of those companies will give us kickbacks for the leads, like a
Sure.
finder's fee.
The important part is that you just, you guide the customer somewhere, even if you're not necessarily the one who's going to execute it, but you have people in your camp, partners, whatever it is, so that you can at least guide them to the solution. Because I feel like historically, when you don't help, or if you just send the client out into the wild, they're going to have to deal with all the noise. They're going to have to deal with the sales pitches. And sometimes, they're going to make that decision based off price, which isn't always the answer either. So I think it's important, and it's kudos to you guys for at least guiding them to that better solution for them. That's going to get them the end result, and also help enhance the work that you guys and the services that you guys are providing. So
Absolutely. And it goes both ways, because then that client you referred or that company you referred business to will refer something back to you later on.
and tell me if this is like this for you guys at Murmur, but 2024 has been a strange year in the sense that I feel like we got a slow start. I feel like the momentum, once it did start, didn't come back maybe the way it did in 2023. I think there's some overlap coming from all the hype wheel around AI. I think some of it's a political year. It's just been an interesting year. How are you guys doing? What are you guys dealing with at Murmur? What's that kind of that marketing climate look like for you?
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, for us, it's been, everything's sort of been different since the pandemic. And we may have not prepared as well as we could have for the current market environment, partly because we got a bunch of PPE, what do they call them? The
Oh,
PP,
yeah, it's
the PP loans.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. So we got a bunch of loans during the pandemic when things slowed down, and it sort of buoyed us. But also, I think that like we probably didn't like adjust enough for the changing environment. And so sort of kind of coming out of the pandemic with sales, especially this year, being really slow, and especially website sales have been really
Hmm.
slow. It forced us to actually put the whole company on halftime for a couple of
Hmm.
months, and that was kind of, I mean, jarring for everybody. There's a program in Oregon that we use that supplemented people's income. It's like a partial unemployment. So
Hmm.
people retained like 70% of their or 80% of their income, despite the fact that we cut everybody's salaries down by half. And that worked out pretty well. It prevented us from having to lay some people off, but it's like not fun for anybody.
No.
You like the business, you know, like you like your employer, to be able to pay your full salary. So,
So, from a client perspective, what do you attribute that? What do you attribute that to? Is it the fear of spending money? Is it everybody's just kind of waiting and seeing what happens, or what do you think what's driving that?
I think a lot of it is wait and see. I think some of it is like money is just more expensive. Larger businesses are not taking out as many loans, so big expenditures are
Yeah.
just not on the docket. I think that yeah, I think that there's this sort of idea, people don't know what AI is and how it's going to change everything. They Everybody hears it's going to improve efficiency by, 1000%. So like, should they be like investing in creative services? Can AI do it for them? I think that sort of thing, I think especially for websites, people are just like, what's the next new thing that I should do? It's overwhelmed because there's so many services and so many different ways to like get a website and so many different ways to pay for a website. And I think that it is kind of a bit of overwhelm and people are like, let's wait, let's see what happens, let's see what happens with the election, let's see what happens with the economy. So what I expect is that, beginning of next year, a lot of those people who have been holding off are going to be like, okay, we got to do this. We've been waiting too long.
Yeah.
And we kind of saw that in the pandemic too. There would be timed periods of time where leads would sort of dry up, and then all of a sudden, like there would be this avalanche of people being
Yeah.
like, "Okay, we got to get it done now."
It, I mean, historically, like it kind of comes in waves, and I agree with everything you said there. And I really do, just to throw a little bit more on it, I do think that AI rattled people's perception of things. And whether that's they think the robots can build it for them or like, I just think it put them in a stage of, hey, we're not so sure about this anymore because all these things are happening. Like, I even have clients sometimes throw like the Elon Musk stuff at me, like, well, Elon's working on X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with what you're doing. But I just think that stuff, that news, that climate is affected by that because it just puts people in a place of a doubt and indecision. And, I'd be curious to your thoughts, but like, you know, make smart choices as business owners, as people, whatever. But I think sometimes we have to just not necessarily buy into all the stuff out there,
Yeah.
and you have to stay the course, and you have to, pivot, not panic, and just like don't, throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, just because things are changing because they were always changing, you
Yeah.
know? Like AI is just another tool in the toolbox. It just so happens it got a lot of hype, when it came out. So that said, I mean, I'd love your thoughts on what's your message to those consumers to say, hey, like do what you got to do, but don't take your eye off the ball.
Yeah, well, I think that there's nothing that I've seen in AI that replaces humans, and I think that like there's a lot of marketing out there sort of saying that it can, and that's
Yeah.
confusing. Like if you go into any of these tools and start using them, you immediately see the flaws and like this doesn't substitute. Like there's, AI logo makers and stuff, and I've fooled around with them and I'm just like, this is useless. Like,
I look at it like, and don't get me wrong, I'm pro AI. I think there's a lot of benefit there, but it's a tool to be leveraged. It's not the be all end all. It's not the replacement of people. It's not. Now, are there efficiencies there? Or are there corners to be cut by using AI? For sure. But I remember, and I don't know how old you are, but I remember when the microwave came out and people were like, the idea of a stove in your home and like, stovetop cooking and like the microwave, man, it's going to blow everybody's minds. And people were like they leaned into it hard and they were for the first time browning hamburger in their microwave and like doing all these things with the microwave. And it was going to be the replacement of oven stoves. Like it was one of these things where it was mind blowing that you could make popcorn in this little device and all these things. And I mean, we see how that it's just another example where it was a tool to be leveraged. It became part of our everyday, usage and, part of our efficiency process and whatnot, but it didn't crash the earth. It didn't take over how things were traditionally done. It just enhanced it. And I know that's not necessarily a one-to-one comparison to AI, but I think the concept is similar. I think we don't know what AI is going to officially, when the dust settles, we don't know where AI is going to fit in everything. So for right now, this idea that it replaces everybody, I just don't necessarily think that's the case. And, going off of kind of what you were saying, I think that's one of the things that coming into 2024, I think that's got kind of people's decision making paralysis a little bit. I think it's got them second guessing a lot of things. I think it's got them second guessing, their internal marketing departments. And do we really need all these people now that we've got AI? And I think they're just looking at everything different right now, which rightfully so. But I think once this bubble bursts, the dust settles a little bit, and we start to figure out what AI really is and where it fits, I think we'll start to see things going back to a new normal. But I mean, I see it with not only prospects, but all my existing clients. Like, I feel like even as a marketing agency and as a creative, and I'd love your thoughts on this as well, I feel like because of AI, even our efforts have been devalued to a degree because they think, well, I used to pay you to do this because you had some kind of intellectual, property or you had some kind of creativity that I would tap into. But now if AI can do it in a matter of seconds, are you now less valuable? And I get clients that challenge even the authenticity of some of the things that we do. Like, hey, did you guys use AI for this? And we're very transparent of where we use it and where we don't. But I can definitely see the mindset has shifted or adjusted just because of the hype wheel that was AI in late 2023.
I agree. I think that it is the perfect storm, right, for
Mm-hmm.
agencies. Like you have that sort of like, even if you're going to hire an agency, are they really spending the hours that they say they're spending? Because they could just be using AI in the background, you know?
Yep.
Like, I do think that, your approach is right. Like you being super transparent. When I interviewed an agency advisor, Carl Sakis, recently on my podcast, and he was saying that you can set up pricing tiers, like more human costs more, AI
Yep.
is cheaper. Like putting it forward and not like pretending it's not there because everybody knows it's there.
Yeah. And we're like, you'd already said it, but like, we're super transparent about it. And I talk about AI with my clients too, in the sense that, like, yeah, I think it's cool. Like, I love to leverage it where I can. Like, I would say the biggest benefit of AI is it just gets you there faster. So, like, the idea generation, like, that to me is where it really expedited things. But as far as the human involvement and how you polish it from that point on, how you interpret creativity as a human versus AI. Like, I think that's the secret sauce that I don't think we'll ever lose. But I think we have to, as marketing professionals, I think we got to make sure clients understand that. Because if we don't defend it, if we don't explain that, they're going to be relegated to all the press out there, like you said, that AI can just do everything you can do. And I don't believe that's true. I should say this. It depends on where your expectations are.
Yeah.
If you have certain expectations or lower expectations, or you're right, AI can do everything we can do. Now, if you really understand what it is you're trying to develop and you're looking for the next level element and all those different things, then I would say no. AI cannot bridge that gap. Not yet,
Well,
anyway.
and in the end, we're problem solvers, and like the best problem solvers have the most context.
Right.
And like, if the only context you had was like a whole bunch of ingested content from the internet,
Yeah.
but
Right.
not a whole lot of like human experience,
Right.
you're not going to be able to solve problems as well.
Well, and I think there's a lot to be said. You said context, but just the perspective of AI is only going to know what you feed it. And when
Yeah.
you're working with a company and you have history with a company and a relationships with a company, those are perspectives that I don't think can be replicated. Now, again, can it produce some really great stuff and get you there faster and even give you perspectives you didn't think of? Yes, but somebody has to be there to catch it, capture it, manipulate it, get it over the finish line. So, to all the points you mentioned about 2024, I agree, but I do think AI is a big one. I think it messed with people's heads and
Yeah.
not in a good way. So,
Oh, but yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it's important. You got to have those conversations with clients. I think that's, it's trust building is so important,
yeah.
and it just like it's one more like question mark in the client agency relationship is like, are they really doing what I want them to do? Are they? The funny thing about agencies is I feel like, you know, I was looking the other day and like Rooter charges at minimum $160 an hour. That's what our hourly is.
Yeah.
My agency. We're not like making
Well,
millions of dollars over here. Like we're making, plumbers are probably making more.
no,
So
100%.
so it's, that for whatever reason, there's sort of illusion that, agencies are rolling in dough because we do marketing stuff. But it's like, no, we're just trying to make it like everybody else. And, we want to be honest. We want to treat our clients good because that's how our businesses grow. So
Yeah.
I think that, that it's a hard position to be in sometimes to establish that trust because for whatever reason, people trust plumbers more than they do agencies.
So tell us where we can follow along and get more information about Murmur and kind of keep up with you guys.
Absolutely. Murmurcreative.com is our website. I also have another website, which is growyouраgency.group, where my podcast and also there's a free Slack group for agency people, and where basically, anyone can join and ask questions about agency stuff. We've got about 1,000 people in there. So those two places are where to find me and Murmur.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you for being on the podcast. Great conversation, and I appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your year.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.